In a land called Prospera, there existed a stark divide between the rich and the poor. The wealthy lived in opulent estates with all the luxuries money could buy, while the impoverished struggled to make ends meet, living in crowded and dilapidated neighborhoods. At the heart of Prospera was the grand palace of abundance, where the ruling elite resided. The ruler of Prospera, King Cedric, was known for his lavish lifestyle and extravagant parties, attended by the richest and most influential people in the kingdom. Meanwhile, the cries of the poor were often ignored, as their pleas for help fell on deaf ears. One day, a young man named Ethan, born into poverty, decided he could no longer bear the oppression of the rich on the poor. He had seen his family and friends suffer, unable to access basic necessities like food, education, and health care. Determined to bring about change, Ethan joined a group of activists who were advocating for equality and social justice. Together, they organized peaceful protests and spoke out against the unjust treatment of the poor. However, their efforts were met with resistance from the ruling class, who saw any challenge to their authority as a threat. As the movement gained momentum, the wealthy elite responded with repression and violence. The king's guards were ordered to quell the protests by any means necessary, leading to confrontations between the protesters and the palace guards. Despite the dangers, Ethan and his fellow activists persisted, believing that their fight was worth it. They knew that true prosperity could only be achieved when the wealth and resources of the kingdom were shared equitably among all its inhabitants. As news of the unrest spread throughout Prospera, not all of the rich turned a blind eye. Lady Isabella, the daughter of one of the wealthiest nobles, began to question the privileges she had enjoyed all her life. She had always been sheltered from the struggles of the poor, but witnessing their plight and the brutal response of the palace guards opened her eyes to the injustice. Feeling torn between her loyalty to her family and her newfound empathy for the oppressed, Lady Isabella made a bold decision. She secretly met with Ethan and the activists, offering to use her influence to appeal to the conscience of the wealthy elite. With Lady Isabella's support, the activists gained access to the palace to present their grievances directly to the king. They pleaded for him to recognize the suffering of the poor and to implement policies that would create a fairer society. To their surprise, King Cedric listened. He had been oblivious to the extent of the suffering in his kingdom and was moved by the stories of the oppressed. He realized that the wealth accumulated by the elite had come at the expense of the less fortunate. Determined to right the wrongs, King Cedric implemented reforms that aimed to bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. He taxed the wealthy more significantly, using the funds to improve education, healthcare, and infrastructure for the impoverished regions of Prospera. Over time, the kingdom began to transform. The people of Prospera were no longer divided by wealth, but united in their pursuit of a better future. As the gap between the rich and the poor narrowed, prosperity truly began to flourish in the land. Ethan and Lady Isabella's alliance of empathy and activism proved that change was possible when people from different backgrounds worked together for a common goal. It was a powerful reminder that oppression, no matter who it targets, can only be dismantled through understanding, compassion, and collective action. And so, Prospera became a place where justice and equality reigned, and the people thrived as a harmonious society.